Hello everyone, welcome to Josh's Boxes. My name is Josh. Today I am outdoors making this video, so I hope that the kind of nature sounds aren't too distracting. There's cicadas freaking everywhere. There's cicadas everywhere, and so they're super loud, and like there's been a wind that's been blowing a little bit. So I hope that the nature sounds are kind of relaxing ambiance rather than a distracting ringing, because that's kind of how they are for me. Anyways, today I wanted to talk about what I've been interested in lately, like I've got a plan for doing, like figuring out more about game design. Basically, I have spent the last few years doing a little bit of RPG game design, and I have like a few Google Docs that have some basic rule sets that are never been play tested, not ready to be shared at all. And I've found that as I've been in grad school, you know, I'm about halfway through now, and I get really excited to write, and then I start writing and I run out of time because I'm so busy as a grad student, and it's only getting worse pretty much until I graduate. And so I've also found that, like, as I've tried to write, I haven't been sure exactly how to implement things, and so I figured that it's probably a better use of my time for this, like the rest of the this next year, basically, that I am a grad student, that I focus more on building like a foundation and a vocabulary for game design before just jumping right into designing full games. So today's video, as you could probably tell by the title, is about me just like going through a list of RPG books that I'm interested in, specifically for their game design elements. So I've got a little list right here that I'm just going to go through and talk about what's standing out to me, what I'm interested in, and why. So I plan to go through it pretty fast because it's a pretty big list, and I hope that this is, you know, interesting to you. So I'm just going to dive right in. The first thing that interests me is what you could call like the 5e family. There are a lot of games based off of 5e, and I like 5e as a system. I'm not a 5e hater, but I don't adore it the way I did even just a few years ago. Kind of ever since like the OGL stuff in 2023, I haven't been that really interested. I've still been doing my solo game in 5e. I plan to have another episode of that out soon. So I like 5e. I think it's a good system, but there's a lot of things I would change about it because I've got a lot of experience with it, and so there's a lot of things that I would change about it. So the games that interest me for like, I'd like to make my own version of 5e. I know like a million people do that, and is that really needed? But I think I've got some pretty good ideas, but that's not what this video is about. So the books I'm interested in, obviously the core 5e books, the Player's Handbook, the Monster Manual, the Dungeon Master's Guide, which I have for 5e. I'm also interested in 5.5, just like seeing how they updated and how they changed things. I don't have those books, but there is the SRD. So until I get those books, I'd like to get them eventually, mostly because the art is really good. The art really kind of captures my imagination. So I'd like to get at least those core books eventually because of the art. But in the meantime, the SRD is available. There's a bug on my leg. The SRD is available for free, and that's got all the core rules and stuff, everything that I would need to study to learn like game design principles from 5e. And so the 5.5 SRD is a big one. Level of Advanced 5e is one that really interests me. I'm really fascinated by its like exploration and social systems, and how it just adds a lot more structure to the game where it's kind of weaker. The classes are a lot more, I mean, as the name would imply, advanced, like a little bit more crunchy. But I don't have the Adventurer's Guide or the Trials and Treasures book, but I do have the Monstrous Menagerie, and so I'm really interested in that. Those also have SRDs, so I can read through those SRDs and the Monstrous Menagerie. So I'm interested what it adds, how it upgrades 5e, what their approach was. In the same vein, Tales of the Valiant is really interesting to me. It seems much more compatible with like standard 5e or 5.5, and so I'm very interested. I have the player's guide for that one, and there's also the Black Flag SRD available that I'm planning on reading and studying. So just interesting to see what they decided to change and what they didn't, and see if I can make sense of that. And then 13th Age, I have a bunch of 13th Age books because they had a humble bundle for it. It was either a humble bundle or a bundle of holding, but I think it was a humble bundle. And so I've got like the core book and 13 ways, or the 13th way, or something like that. Like 2 or 3 of the bestiaries and a bunch of adventures and stuff. I know that they have a second edition out. I don't have that one, but I've heard that they're pretty similar, pretty compatible. And so I think I can get most of the game design lessons I would want out of the first edition PDFs that I have. And that's all kind of like the 5e family. I know like 13th Age doesn't use 5e in the same way that those other ones do, but it's made by the same people who, it's not the exact same people, it's the creators of 4th edition, but it came out around the same time as 5e. It's got very similar DNA. I'm really interested in things like the icons and how that affects the world, and like the escalation die and things like that. So it's got a lot of interesting ideas, and I'm also curious the class design. That's kind of the 5e family of books that I'm interested in. As far as OSR games, because I'm a fan of OSR. I don't play a lot of OSR. I'd like to, but OSR, like the style, definitely intrigues me, and I have all of these games. So Knave 2, that's one that I use for my prep all the time because the tables are just so good. So I'd be really curious to like read it from a game design perspective of how he designed the tables and how they act with each other, and what tables he decided to include and which ones, you know, maybe he didn't include and why. Just asking those questions I think would be really interesting because I find that book so valuable in my prep. Old School Essentials is like peak layout. Like the layout is so good in that book. I have the Advanced Fantasy GM book and Player's book. I don't remember what they're called. Referee's Tome and Player's Guide, something like that. So I'm really interested in the layout of that book, especially studying the layout to see how they convey information, because it's so good. Like it's so readable, it's so clear, it's so easy. You fly through those pages. So OSC is one. It's debatable whether this next one is OSR, but Forbidden Lands, it's got such a cool setting, and there are so many like procedures, especially like exploration procedures, that I'm really interested in studying and getting to know better, as well as like the Year Zero engine is just one that's fascinating to me. Dragonbane's on this list as well. And the Year Zero engine, I know that Dragonbane isn't Year Zero engine, but like those games are really interesting to me for like how they deviate from the standard, and while keeping that like old school vibe. I mean, you've got to have Shadowdark on this list. Shadowdark's like the most popular OSR game, debatably. Either that or OSE, honestly. And so, you know, Shadowdark, everyone praises its writing. I've liked it. I have the PDF and like reading through the book, and so I'd be really interested to study like the classes and especially like the procedures, exploration procedures, and like monsters and things like that is what interests me about Shadowdark. The Black Hack is probably one of my favorite OSR games. It's the one I've played the most. I really like the Black Hack. Second edition specifically, I haven't read the first edition, but I understand they're pretty similar. So yeah, Black Hack second edition. It's so simple, it's so easy. That's pretty much my go-to game when it comes to teaching new players is Black Hack, because the abilities are really simple, it's really flavorful. Roll Under just like makes so much sense to new players. Like they don't have to do any math, they just roll and check, compare to their ability score. So I know a lot of people don't like Roll Under systems, but there's something that's really appealing about that for like new players. So I'd like to study more about Black Hack. Cairn is one. That's one that I've had for a long time because it's free and they just had that new edition come out. But I haven't read it, haven't looked into it. I've got the PDFs. I think the PDFs are free, or pay what you want or something like that, that I have. And so I'm very curious about Cairn because like just the fact that it's based on items and you've got these 3 abilities and things like that, it's just very different from like your classic, like a Shadow Dark game that's way more similar to your classic D&D. I'm really curious to see how they change things and what the effect is. That's kind of all the OSR games that I'm interested in. This last list is what you might call miscellaneous. These are games that like don't really have any games I'm interested in, but for like various game design reasons, I guess. First one is Dungeon World. I've got a physical copy of Dungeon World I've had for years now, that I've tried to read but haven't like ever like really committed to it, so it's always kind of fell to the side. But just like being Powered by the Apocalypse but with that dungeon exploration focus is really interesting to me. I kind of have mixed feelings about Powered by the Apocalypse, because I've had really positive experiences with Ironsworn. I really like that game. I also played Root, the RPG, and I had a lot of fun playing Root, but I don't know that I loved the system itself. There was a lot of times when I wanted to do something, but a move didn't really let me do it the way I wanted to, and so it felt just like weird. So I'd like to explore more about the like Powered by the Apocalypse in your classic fantasy setting, but also like the idea of campaign fronts and stuff. Like Dungeon World has a lot of innovative ideas that I'm really interested. I've never studied before and would really like to. So that's Dungeon World. Next is ICRPG, which I've got with me. I've talked about this book a lot. ICRPG is so good. It's so good. The Game Master tips are just so fascinating. I've been reading through those. You can see, maybe you can't see, but I'm like that far into it. I really like the game design stuff, and like this is such a cool RPG, so I'm fascinated to study like the monsters and what impact they have on the game, how they're unique from just bags of hit points with attacks. I really am intrigued by the worlds and want to study how he presents 5 different settings in one book, and what I can learn from that. And then yeah, the GM tips are just top-notch, just like world-class GM guide section, that I'd like to study, if nothing else to make me a better GM, but also to write better Game Master sections for future books. Nimble is one that I'd like to study. I've been playing a ton of Nimble. I've been running a campaign for over a year in Nimble. We've done almost 30 sessions, and I have a lot of thoughts about it. Once we finish the campaign, I think we're going to finish up here in August. I'll make a full video about what I learned from Nimble and what my thoughts are on the system. But I can't say that I've like sat down and studied it, but there is a lot, especially the monsters, like the monster simplicity, and also just like the class design is something that really intrigues me and that I'd like to like actually study rather than just play. Fate is one, that's one I've had for forever. One of the first RPGs I got that wasn't D&D. It might have been I got D&D, I got Ironsworn because the PDFs are free, and then I got Fate. So it's like one of my first RPGs, but I've never played it. I even have the fancy fudge dice for it, but I've never played it. But I'm so interested by aspects, how you just like create something and have that impact the story as like a universal system. So I'm really intrigued by Fate and want to read it and study it and learn how it goes about doing that universal engine. Next is Into the Odd. That's one that gets recommended a lot in these kind of videos, like game design ones you need to read, because it's like so minimal and does things so differently, but like so creatively. Like I'm fascinated. The wind's picking up a little bit. Hopefully that's not too bad. I'm fascinated by like how the better your ability scores are, the worse your equipment is at the start, and just choices like that that make it like a really interesting game. I don't have that one at all, but if I make like good progress in these other ones, I might pick it up. And I'm thinking about it. It's on sale right now for the Christmas in July, so I'm considering picking up that one, just because I would be really interested to study that, to just like understand what it is and why it's inspired so many other games, you know. Next is Blades in the Dark. This is another one that gets recommended all the time by like people talking about game design. The world is so cool. I've read a little bit of the world building section, and the world is so fascinating. It's got such a cool world, and he adds even more to it with the Deep Cuts add-on, a bunch of factions and stuff. I don't have that one. I've just, you know, read the RPG or the Drive-Thru RPG description. So really fascinating world, and the game design is so different from every other game, you know, like kind of Powered by the Apocalypse, but not really. And like you've got this narrow focus on being a thief in this city, and like how they power that and how they build it. And it's got obviously famous for its clocks and timers and things like that. So I think there's a lot that I want to study about Blades in the Dark. The very last one is Vagabond. It's one that I want to study for the class design and the layout. I'm so fascinated by how it can have like 18 classes in one book, and then the spell book expansion that just got kickstarted adds like 10 new classes or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it is. Maybe, I think it's ballpark 10. So like there's so many classes and they're so unique. Like there's like merchant classes and jester classes and witches on top of your classic like mages and sorcerers and fighters and whatever. So the class design is something that really intrigues me. And it also seems like a book that's like peak layout. So I'd be really curious to study that one for its layout. I don't own that PDF either. Last year he did a Black Friday sale where he had the PDF for half off. So I'm just kind of holding out for Black Friday to hope it goes on sale for half off so I can get it done. Because that's a really good deal, $10. And my budget's pretty tight. So yeah, I've got a lot of games I want to study. I doubt that I'll be able to read and like meaningfully study all of them over the course of the next year before I graduate. And that's not really the point. It's just, you know, I just wanted to talk about the games I'm interested in and what's on my mind recently with RPGs. I've been talking a lot about like art and other projects, so I wanted to put an RPG video out there. Because I think most of the people that subscribe to me subscribe for my RPG content. So hopefully this is interesting. Maybe this puts some games on your radar that could be interesting if you wanted to study them for game design, or for like making your own homebrew, or even just playing at the table. So I hope that's interesting. I like talking about these things. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, ciao.